Chapter 26. A Friendly Duel. Nora winced. She knew it would work. Up until Vila came back. Could she really look him in the face and explain why she had left his mother standing out in the cold? Nora cursed inwardly. She couldn't lie to him. What was worse, she literally could not lie to him. While she could use the soul bond to compel him to come when she called, she couldn't ever lie to him. Even if she could, she would feel absolutely wretched about it. She felt horrible already. Nora struck the air with her staff and pivoted back around and marched toward the gate. She put on her best smile as she went to greet her mother-in-law. It was better to suffer a little now than be ridden with guilt for weeks later. The guards opened the gate for her and stepped aside. Nora held her breath as she tentatively stepped out and did her absolute best to sound shocked and happy to see her. "Mother Nadette, what a surprise!" she exclaimed. Nadette turned and gave her a warmed, wrinkled, kindly smile. Nora's eyes widened when she spotted the broom in her hand. "I've come to help you clean things up," Nadette announced. "I assure you that is not necessary. The help will be very upset if you take their jobs. They're being paid quite handsomely. You can leave it outside if you like," she insisted. Nadette waved a bony hand. "Nonsense! If I left it outside, somebody might take it," she grumbled. Nora couldn't help but smile. "Who would steal a broom?" she asked. "It's a magic broom," Nadette announced in a low, conspiratorial whisper. Nora's smile melted away, and she regarded the old crone's broom with a little more caution. "Does it fly?" she asked with a smirk. Nadette raised her bristly gray eyebrows. "Can your staff fly, child?" she asked. Nora took in a deep, calming breath. "Of course not." "Oh, I'm sorry. Don't they make those any more?" Nadette asked. Nora pressed her lips together and bit her tongue. "Would you like one?" Nadette asked. Nora's eyes narrowed. "They don't make them," she clarified. "You mean you didn't get one?" Nadette asked in a surprised, innocent granny voice. Nora's thin nostrils flared, and she quickly changed topics. "Would you like some tea? I am sorry I don't have any place for you to stay. There is a lot of remodeling to do left," she announced. "Yes, very impressive. I'm surprised you got Helvistia out of the mineral spring," Nadette remarked. Nora folded her arms and her face darkened. "How long did you know she was a frost dragon?" she demanded. "I think I will have some tea," Nadette agreed. "How long did you know about the frost dragon, and why didn't you tell me?" she demanded, but Nadette didn't respond, and she merely puttered over toward the tent and plopped herself down at the table and smiled at the serving lady as she brought her over a selection of teas to choose from. "How long?" Nora demanded again. "About what?" Nadette asked. "About winter." Nadette crunched her brows together. "Winter? It won't be winter for a while yet," she chimed. The serving girl held up the selection of teas out to Nora, but she impatiently waved her away. All right. How long did you know Helvisti was a frost dragon?" she asked. "Blessed be her name," Nadette chimed. "Yes, of course," Nora muttered. "You're not a believer, are you?" Nadette surmised. Nora bristled. It was then she realized she was leaning over the round wooden table, hovering over the poor old woman as if she was interrogating a captured enemy soldier. With a calming breath, Nora pried her fingers from the table, and with as much serenity as she could muster, she sat down and crossed her legs. "I will have some tea as well," she announced. "What kind would you like, Magi?" asked the serving girl in the black dress and white apron. Nora felt her eye twitch. "Just pour it. Whatever she's having will do," she said impatiently. "Do you want the mugwort in yours as well, Magi?" the serving girl asked worriedly. Nora's eyes went wide. "When did we get that?" she asked. The serving girl bit her lower lip as she set the hot, gold-rimmed teacup in front of Nadette. "It's not ours, Magi," she replied. Nadette smiled and offered up her personal, smelly, worn-out little leather pouch. Nora grimaced. "No, peppermint will be fine, thank you," she insisted. Once the tea was served, Nora took the cup and neatly blew the steam off the top and took a small sip before resuming the conversation. "I believe in the gods. I am just not familiar with this one," she explained. "Oh, but you have seen her, have you not?" Nadette insisted. Nora took another calming deep breath. "Why didn't you tell me that Helvisti was a frost dragon?" she asked. Nadette blinked. "You mean you didn't know?" she said innocently. Nora's thin-lipped smile tightened. Right then her gaze drifted from Nadette and settled on the broom. It was standing, unassisted, with the bristles up and balancing on the narrow handle on the smooth paving stones. Nadette blinked and then turned. "Oh, sorry, it has a bit of mind of its own sometimes," she apologized and reached over and set it neatly against the table. "Of course, it happens to me all the time," she replied through gritted teeth. Nadette smiled. "Does yours sing and dance as well?" she asked. Nora sighed. "Not recently." "Would you like it to?" she asked. "No, I don't believe I would," Nora replied, and then smiled. "It's quite the clever trick, a little levitation spell, I presume." "I bet you could convince some poor idiot into taking a running start off the wall tops," she remarked. Nadette shook her head. "Oh, goodness, no, child. I would never take a beginner that high, especially if they didn't know what they were doing. Vila would never forgive me if I did that," she assured her. "You set my yurt on fire," Nora remarked grimly. "You needed to be motivated. Besides, Helvisti needed you," Nadette insisted. Nora grimaced and then rose to her feet. "Thank you for stopping by. It was nice chatting," she concluded. "Excellent. When do we start working on your house?" Nadette asked. "I suppose you brought your magic spoon with you as well," Nora remarked sourly. Nadette smiled and fished the wooden spoon out from her fur-lined pocket. "Always." "Did you bring your wand?" Nadette asked. "I am an elemental war mage. I don't need a little wand to cast piddly spells or to start house fires," she sniffed. Nadette smiled. "Are you challenging me to a duel?" she asked. Nora frowned. "It might be fun," Nadette teased. "I haven't walloped a real mage in a long time. It would be good practice," she insisted. "No, mother dearest, that would be silly," Nora replied as calmly as she could. "Oh, I would go easy on you," Nadette assured her. Nora smirked. "Fine. Have it your way. Do your worst, she challenged. She wasn't going to actually do anything. She would merely let the smug old crone tire herself out. Nanette smiled and held out her wooden spoon. So, you're an elemental. That means you'll be quite fast, she remarked. Nora set her staff down and folded her arms. Fast enough, she shrugged. Nanette levitated the mage's staff. Nora rolled her eyes and threw up the barrier, and her cherry wooden staff went flying over the wall. Oh my, that was impressive. Vila chose well, Nanette marveled. Nora smirked. Thank you, she said. Nanette smiled. Well, you win. I'll be off, she announced. Nora gave a curt, grim nod of satisfaction. But as she went to show Nanette out, she suddenly found she couldn't move. Oh, please, stay where you are. I know the way, she assured her. Nora clenched her teeth as she braced herself on the wooden table and glowered back at the old crone as she waddled her way back out the gate. A wave of dread washed over her when the broom rattled about and then flew off after Nanette. Once she was gone, Nora glanced down at her feet. The soles of her boots had a thin layer of ice around them. The staff had merely been a misdirection, and she had been trapped by a simple frost spell. Nora muttered under her breath as she channeled heat down through her boots and stepped free. While the spell had been simple, Nora knew all too well if Nanette had wished to, she could have easily done something far worse. Instead of ice, it could have been fire, or God knows what else. Perhaps even a telepathic attack. Nora felt a cold shiver run down her spine. Telepaths could be very dangerous. What was surprising was Nanette seemed to be fully capable and proficient at multiple advanced disciplines. The old crone could certainly cast just as vast as any master elemental mage from Founder's Keep could. Nora began to wonder if Nanette really could fly on her broom, but that would be silly and very uncomfortable. No, Nanette was merely playing mind games with her. Telekinesis was difficult, but the constant concentration and the amount of effort that it would take while moving any sort of practical distance and any sort of speed was not exactly useful transportation. Nora could use telekinesis to slow a near-fatal or harmful fall, and or hover off the ground for a short period if she wanted to show off, but she had never seen it used to fly. Nora hesitated, and then she turned back and hurried over toward the gate and glanced down the road, and she let out a sigh of relief. She could make out Nanette's small silhouette continue to slowly waddle down the winding mountain road. I'm an idiot, she muttered to herself. If Nanette really could fly, she would have arrived in a rocking chair, or perhaps a flying ship, or a bloody goddamned carriage pulled by bloody flying reindeer. But right before she turned around, Nanette came to a standstill and calmly clambered up onto a round boulder that overlooked the city below. Nora frowned as Nanette let the broom hover in the air. The old woman turned and gave her a smug grin. Impossible, Nora breathed under her breath. Nanette neatly scooted her bottom on the bristles and pushed off. Nora's mouth fell open as she watched her disappear down the mountainside. She went sprinting down the road. She half expected to see Nanette huddled behind the rock, laughing at her. Or worse, sprawled out in the snow and needing medical attention. Instead, she saw a tail of snow flurries flying behind her as the old hag went zooming down the mountain. Nora braced her hands on her knees as she struggled to catch her breath. She glanced about and quickly righted herself and glared at the two smiling guards at the gatehouse, who quickly found a nice fluffy cloud in the sky while she regained her composure. "Bloody show-off," she muttered. While Nadette had not flown, she had used a very simple technique to do something visually impressive. All the old crone had done was merely use a narrow pocket of air that was easy to control and focus on to slide down the hillside like a child might use to slide down a flight of stairs on the hand railing. On her way back, Nora glanced about for her staff. "Bloody idiot," she scolded herself. But she refused to go out of her way to find it. She was embarrassed enough as it was. Instead, she walked back into the courtyard and braced her hands on her hips and looked for someone to vent her frustrations on. Unfortunately, things were going quite well. There wasn't anything she could pick at or nag about. The servants were already sorting things and cleaning away dust, mold, and grime. The carpenters were pounding nails, measuring, cutting wood, and their apprentices were running back and forth with fresh planks. The stonemasons were polishing the marble floors and adding a lovely blue lapis inlay. It was cheaper than ripping out the whole sections of marble, and Nora couldn't help but find the scratch marks left behind by Winter's massive black claws to be oddly endearing, so long as they weren't a tripping hazard. Nora glanced up at the gaping hole in the ceiling where the chandelier had been. Well, that was going to take a while, but then a smile came to her face. She would replace it with Winter's scales and a mixture of low-hanging dragon charms, and seashells, and a few sea stars as well. Yes, that would be unique. In fact, she hadn't ever seen anything like that before, and it would be much faster to assemble than waiting on crystal to be cut and another chandelier to be built. Governor Clarice had also donated the furniture from his guest house. Nora couldn't help but smile. If she didn't know any better, she might have thought he was eager to get rid of her. Chapter 27. Restoration. By the following morning, her mansion had been nearly restored. When Nora strode into the entry, her face lit up as she examined the freshly painted white walls. She handed off her long white fur mink coat and gazed up at the newly assembled chandelier. Instead of crystal, it sparkled with polished white dragon scales, seashells, and various sea stars. It went wonderfully with the sparkling blue lapis on the floor and marble pillars. "It's perfect," she gasped. "It's wonderful. Bring in the furniture," she commanded. And the doors burst open, and cart after cart was unloaded. Nora frolicked about like a mad conductor, pointing and instructing the moving crews where to place everything. There was still so much to be done, but when she was satisfied with the entry and her bedroom, she delegated the rest to the staff, and she hurried over to see Winter. "We are going flying today," Nora announced in a happy, sing-song voice. Winter poked her head above the steaming green water's surface and fixed her jet-black eyes on the saddle and reins in Nora's hands. "I know you haven't seen these before, have you?" Nora cooed softly. Winter let out a loud blast of air from her nostrils. Nora couldn't read minds, but she got the message loud and clear. "Well, it won't be the last time," she assured the dragon, but Winter gradually remained in their warm mineral bath and gave her a grouchy sidelong glance. The tip of her long, slender tail flicked upward. Nora sighed. "I see you're going to be difficult. Very well. We will wait until the courtyard is clear of distractions," she mused out loud, and then frowned when she spotted the tail inching toward the leather saddle. "No," she said sternly. Winter coyly swept her tail away and reared up on her hind legs and fanned out her wings as if she had merely been stretching. Nora sighed. "I think flying might not be a good idea yet," she murmured. Nora tossed the saddle and reins aside. "I think we need to spend more time together. I normally do not bond any living creature unless they are happy, but I think you look like you are quite content to stick around," she cooed softly. Winter tilted her head. It was obvious she was trying to understand. "After all, you have a lovely pile of treasure and a warm mineral bath," Nora remarked, and then grimaced. She wasn't entirely sure if sage or incense would have the same calming effect on the frost dragon. Perhaps it would do nothing, or worse, it could do the opposite. It was not necessary, but it helped. Nora just had to figure out how to lull Winter into a calm state where they could connect with one another telepathically. While mages specialized in some techniques, all mages were familiar with the basics. Simmons, being a mage strong in telepathy, could have contacted Winter from across the room without any effort at all. Simmons could also start a fire or levitate objects like Nora could, only they would be really small, and it would take him a few minutes to get anything done. When it came to telepathy, Nora was at a similar disadvantage. She had to be in physical contact, and both parties had to be calm and still when it came to dragons. This was easier said than done. She smiled as she knelt down at the edge of the dragon's pool, and she slipped off her boots and dipped her feet into the water and calmly gazed down at her shy frost dragon. "I really wish Irene were here," Nora sighed in a sing-song voice. It really didn't matter what she said. The dragon would only understand the tone of her voice and her body language. Winter inched a bit closer until she rested her large snout in Nora's lap. "Yeah, you would have liked Irene," Nora whispered. Now that she was touching Winter, she was able to relay the soft, soothing harp melody that was in her mind to her dragon. Winter's big black eyes grew heavy. Nora gently stroked her smooth, warm scales and cupped water into her palm and stroked her warm, wet hand between the ridges and around the crown. She counted 18 horns. Some of them were no bigger than her thumb, and others were more pronounced and were dangerous, foot-long spikes. "I like you so very much. Do you like me?" Nora whispered. A soft, warm, contented thrum resonated through the whole building. Nora smiled and closed her eyes. Her focus deepened. "I want to stay with you forever," she cooed softly. It was then Nora felt herself drift away. Darkness enveloped her, and she found herself kneeling beside the warm mineral hot spring. The warm mist glowed from a mysterious light that came up from the enchanted pool. This pool only existed in the dragon's mind, and for the most part, the dragon was in complete control of the dream realm and could manifest itself anywhere and in any form. Nora leaned forward and called in a soft, soothing voice, "Where are you?" In her mind's eye, she was bombarded with several images of dragon riders that had come before her. They had kept poor Winter in a wooden crate and paraded her around the city. Nora shook her head. "No, you will fly," she insisted, and projected images of Winter soaring through the air and landing on glaciers and fishing all sorts of fishes in the ocean. Nora felt tears well up in her eyes when she heard the mournful whimper, and a horrible impression that her poor dragon didn't know how to fly, as she had been cooped up for so long. "It's all right," Nora gasped, and she reached into the glowing pool of warm mist until she felt Winter's snout and caressed her big scaly head. "I will teach you," she promised. Nora wasn't sure how this was going to happen, and the dragon quickly challenged her on it. "We'll glide first." "Are you good at gliding yet?" she ventured. The dragon became still. Nora could feel her contemplating this, not exactly certain whether she could trust the silly human that didn't even have any wings, yet she very much wanted to. "Even I can do that. It's really fun," she insisted. Nora lamented she didn't have any of her own memories to share, but instead settled on the image of Nadette speeding down the mountainside on her broom. Winter's big, shimmering, scaly head emerged from the glowing white mist. Nora leaned back and grinned up at her. All at once, the dream realm melted away. Nora inhaled sharply as she found herself back where she had started, sitting barefoot by the pool with her dragon's head in her lap. Nora smiled. Now Winter really was her dragon, she thought as she closed her eyes and placed a kiss on Winter's forehead, and then was pleasantly surprised when she felt the warm, amused, throaty thrum resonate her whole being. She was her human. Winter corrected her. Nora smirked. She felt Vila embrace her, as he sensed the dragon had become a part of their soul bond. Winter contemplated this third presence for a moment, but then she felt Nora respond with affection, and she let it go. Her humans. "Are you going to sleep in your pool all day?" Nora teased. Winter blinked. She quickly remembered the promise of flight, but then she lazily let out a long, pent-up sigh that manifested in a blast of white steam from her nostrils. "Don't you want to meet your other human?" she asked. Winter dipped her head down into the water. "He doesn't know you can't fly," Nora assured her. Winter didn't respond. "He will when he comes back," Nora warned. Large air bubbles simmered on the surface of the water as the dragon let out a muted roar of protest. "He won't go away," she insisted. "I won't either. You are stuck with me. Besides, how can you take care of Vila and me if you can't fly?" Nora sighed and rolled her eyes. "I am not going to stay inside. I have things to do, and I need your help," she insisted. While she was frustrated with the minor setback, Nora couldn't help but be impressed. She hadn't ever had this sort of detailed conversation with Golden Eyes before. Nora wondered if this was because she was dealing with a house dragon that had been raised in captivity without any other interaction with its own kind. "Suit yourself. I will meet you on top of the mountain. You can slide down on your belly if you like." Nora quirked a brow. The water churned about, the large bubbles rose, and she could hear the muffled, angry growl resonate through the cobblestone floor. "You said you wanted to stay with me. I didn't trick you at all," Nora insisted as she pulled her socks and boots back on before sauntering over across the room and hefted the saddle over her shoulder. Nora felt an impish smirk cross her lips as she felt the dragon ask how long this would last. "Forever is a long time," Nora replied. "Fine, I'll be waiting on top of the mountain. You can come of your own free will, or sleepwalk up. You aren't going to lounge around and get free food and sparkly things forever," she insisted. Nora rolled her eyes. "You said you wanted to fly. We're going to fly." There was another low, rumbling howl of protest. Vila isn't a dragon. He does other important things. He doesn't have to fly. Besides, he doesn't have any wings, she insisted. Nora smiled as she opened the large barn doors. She could feel the dragon needing to come up for air any time now. Winter came bursting out of the pool. Her claws clacked loudly on the tiled floor as she came reluctantly with her head drooped as she nervously followed behind her mistress. The guards and servants all stopped and stared as she came strolling out with her dragon in tow. Nora winced when she heard the piano topple off the cart. "We shall go out the side gate," Nora announced, but she quickly used the air to hold the overly ambitious guards into place. "Please do not run. We shall proceed in a nice, calm manner to the north gate," she insisted. The guards glanced at her, then glanced at her dragon, and quickly nodded. "Leave their helmets alone," Nora warned. Winter cracked her tail agitatedly on the ground and grouchily followed after Nora. "You'll be fine. It'll be fun," she assured her. "It won't be awful. You won't die. I will help you. You were born to fly. It will come quick, trust me," Nora insisted. While Winter didn't speak in words, she sensed the sassy Hendrite project her frustrations out onto her. Winter didn't understand the words, but she could sense the inflections, and she quickly absorbed their meaning through the soul bond. It was quite a shock to the system. Vila hadn't been too thrilled about it either. Nora, of course, hadn't bonded him against his will, but like Winter, he just had no idea how much control he was losing when he consented to the bond. But he had grown to get used to it, and even love it, and Nora was confident that Winter would too. "I didn't trick you, Vila," Nora laughed. Winter howled again. "I didn't tell him you couldn't fly. You told him, you twit," Nora scoffed. Winter let out a vexed roar that echoed off the mountainside and ripped out a pine tree from the roots and sent it flying off the steep ledge. "How old are you?" Nora asked. Winter flashed her an angry glare and reared up and spread her wings and puffed out her chest. Nora smirked. "Well, I can certainly see you're a big fledgling, perhaps even old enough to fly," she remarked. Winter deflated and came crashing back down onto all fours. "Don't be sad, be angry," Nora scolded her. "Nothing worse than a sad, mopey dragon," she muttered. Finally they came to a steep ledge. Winter let out a groan and looked away. "We aren't flying today. We are just doing a little recreational gliding," she assured her. Winter nipped at the saddle and then flung it off the edge. Nora sighed and braced her hands on her hips as she watched the expensive leather saddle tumble down the steep mountainside until it finally tangled up into some bushes poking out from the snow. "Well, that's a good start," she mumbled. Winter stubbornly flopped down on the ground and tucked her snout under her wings. Nora smirked. "Fine, you can go by yourself," she shrugged. Just as she was about to take a running leap, Winter blocked her path. Nora laughed as she rolled beneath Winter's belly and launched herself off the cliff. Winter let out a frantic wailing howl from on top of the mountainside. Vila always hated it when she did this as well, but Nora was under complete control. Her long auburn braid and cloak trailed behind her as she sailed through the air with a lofty, almost angelic flair. As she extended her hand and completed the circle before she touched down onto the soft powder and slid the rest of the way until she was beside her saddle. Nora quickly wiped the snow from her face and glanced up at the now very worried dragon above. "Come on, use your wings, just glide," she called up. Winter growled and turned away. "I won't laugh at you. It'll be fun," Nora insisted. Winter scooted herself over toward the ledge. Unfortunately, by the time she had tried to back out, she was already sliding, and she spun around and began frantically digging her large talons into the ice and snow. But gravity had overcome her desperate attempts to scramble back up, and so she finally relented and allowed herself to slowly slide the rest of the way down until her rump was next to her human. Winter groaned and hid her head under her wing. Nora grimaced. "You overthink things too much," she remarked. "I mean it. You are a very intelligent dragon. I never met any other dragon like you before," she insisted. This compliment seemed to catch the sulking dragon by surprise. A moment later, Winter poked her head up. "You see, all the other dragons are so reckless. They just spread their wings and throw themselves off the ledge. But you actually think before you leap. I'm very impressed," Nora insisted. Winter gently gave her wings a soft thresh and puffed out her chest as she nonchalantly craned her neck and began licking at her scales. Nora took that distracted moment to throw the saddle over the dragon's back. Winter's head swiveled back around, but Nora pushed her head away. "We're going to try again," she insisted. "Do you want to walk home alone?" she asked. Winter drooped her head and allowed Nora to fix the leather straps under her belly. "Relax, it will be fine," she soothed. Once the dragon released the pent-up gust of air, she quickly cinched up the strap. Nora had learned this the hard way with horses. Sometimes they would take a big gulp of air to swell up their bellies and then let it out later, letting the saddle come loose. Thankfully, she had learned this while riding a horse and not flying a dragon. Once the harness was secure, Nora clambered up onto Winter's back. "It's all right," she soothed her. "You were born for this. You were born to fly," she encouraged. "Close your eyes," she instructed. Winter's head pivoted around and stared at the crazed mage on her back in disbelief. Nora smiled and leaned up to kiss the frost dragon on the nose. "It's okay, we aren't flying yet," she assured her. "All we're going to do is close your eyes and spread your wings, and then we'll go home, all right?" Winter reluctantly closed her eyes, and then, very hesitantly, unfurled her massive snowy white sails. "Shh, it's okay, stay like that," Nora soothed, and she smiled as she felt Winter's massive heart pounding within her own chest. "We're going to stay here and feel the wind, that's all. Smell the fresh air and feel the wind," she whispered as she stroked Winter's neck. A sudden gust of wind filled her snowy white wings. Winter's great powerful shoulders instinctively flexed and twitched as she regained her balance. Nora lowered her face down and gently kissed the base of Winter's long neck. "It's nice, isn't it?" she purred softly. Winter softly threshed the air with her wings as another gust of wind almost swept her off her feet. "See, you were born to fly," Nora whispered. Winter steadied herself and quickly folded her wings, then glanced up toward where they had come. "You did good. Let's go home," Nora encouraged. "Unless you want to go into town," she suggested. Winter tilted her head to the side, giving her a curious why in Hades would she want to do that look. Where do you think I get all those glass charms from? Nora laughed. Winter blinked. Well, I don't lay them or find them in the dirt. I buy them and bring them back. People make them, and if I am nice to them, they give them to me. But if you break their things, they won't be nice to me any more, she insisted. Nora made sure to add the last bit, so Winter wouldn't go about trying to terrorize the locals for tribute. The dragon blinked again. It clearly didn't understand the concept of buying things, but it sort of got the concept of being nice, or at least not eating them or stealing their treasures. Never mind, we can try to climb up the mountain if you like, or we can glide down and get a ride back home, she offered. I won't tell them you can't fly. I'll just say you aren't feeling well is all, she assured her. Winter reluctantly pivoted back around as she hesitantly fanned out her wings. Another large updraft made her panic, and she quickly folded them back against her sides. Just close your eyes and try a little hop, Nora encouraged. Winter let out a flustered growl as she craned her neck and timidly lifted her front talons off the ground. Close your eyes. Just feel the wind. You'll know when you're ready, she assured her. Once again, Winter extended her wings, and her heart began to race as she felt the wind race beneath them. Nora grinned. You feel it, don't you? She whispered. Winter gave a small, experimental hop, and for a brief moment she hovered in place. The dragon let out a surprised yelp and quickly eased herself back down. What did you think? She asked. Winter thrummed loudly. Just glide us down. Nice and easy, she encouraged. Winter flexed her wings and smelt the air. Wait for it, Nora whispered. Winter let out an excited chirping sound as she hovered above the ground, and then, this time, leaned into the wind, and away they went. Her long, whip-like tail dragged behind on the ground, throwing up a shimmering trail of light, fluffy powder into the air like a comet as they glided down. Nora grinned as Winter began to gently sway as she banked side to side. You clever girl, you're doing it, she praised her. Winter let out an excited thrumming sound as she bore down, gliding faster and faster. She strafed just inches above the snow and soon began weaving back and forth in tight, curving serpentine patterns. Winter yelped as she suddenly found herself racing toward a cliff. Be brave. Do what feels natural, Nora encouraged. Winter let out a flustered growl, but before she could panic and plant her feet down, Nora intervened and summoned a warm gust of wind that sent the dragon soaring up into the sky. Taken by complete surprise, Winter instinctively threshed the air with her wings to stabilize herself, and before she knew it, she was soaring over the rooftops, and fear melted away, and her heart now fluttered with excitement. Winter! Nora shrieked in panic as the excited hendrake did a barrel roll. The dragon chortled in amusement, and Nora laughed. You're flying, she guffawed. Winter soared up higher and higher until they were skimming along the white clouds. Nora wished she had brought warmer clothes and her riding goggles, but she was too excited to care. On her stinging face was plastered a frozen cherry-cheeked grin as the dragon dove back down and circled above the city in steep banking turns. You are so fast and agile, Nora whispered through the soul bond as she hunkered down and gave Winter a kiss on her neck. Find Vila, she cooed softly. My name is Marco, and I am the author, narrator, and glee man for Founders Keep. I wrote this during the lockdowns, and it is an audiobook for free on my YouTube channel at Dragon Audiobooks. If you want to read along, and if you absolutely love the book, you can get the hard copy, and you can get it in digital. The cool thing about this book is that you can share it with your friends, and you know J.R. Tolkien. Would you like to write him? You can't. He's gone. J.K. Rowling. You probably could messenger. She's a busy lady. She might get back to you. But me, I am here to entertain you. I am not just a writer. I am a glee man, if you will. And I do podcasts. I do audiobooks. So not only will you get this audiobook, you'll get all the other stuff that I put out on YouTube. And the most important thing, a sword. The most important thing, there will be dragons. There'll be lots of dragons. And most fantasy books, dragons have gone extinct and they're gone. These dragons are very much here and real. So there will be dragons. So Founders Keep, fancy fiction, magic, mages, swords, true love, revenge. Dragon Audiobooks. Follow me on Twitter, Dragon Audiobooks, YouTube.